Aluminium.
No. Aluminum.
Aluminium.
No, 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 no. Aluminum.
Aluminium.
Aluminum.
Aluminium.
Trust me. Aluminum.
Potato.
Oh.
So this game is about 1775. Now you may be surprised to learn that it is not about the most important event of that year, which was of course the invention of Mr. Potato Head, but it is in fact about the 1775 rebellion, the American Revolution. So you play as either the British or the Americans, and you can recruit French, Hessians, and you can even recruit the Native Americans.
Now you can see that the board is basically an upside down map of America, with here being the south and here being the north. And you might think it looks a little bit like Risk, because hey, there are these areas and troops in each area and then you move them about and conquer them. Well, you wouldn't be too wrong, because it does have quite a few similarities with Risk, but saying that, it's very different. I remember playing Risk as a kid. I was 12 and our friend had it, and he had this attic above a garage, and we used to climb this ladder because there were no stairs, and for hours and hours and hours we would be conquering the world. But that's the problem. It took hours and hours and hours, and sometimes within the first 30 minutes you knew you'd lost, but there was nothing you could do. You had to stay and play. And the game was very random because of dice rolls. Sometimes an entire cannon could be sacrificed to but 2 enemy troops. This game is nothing like it. Now put your military hats on, because we're
How
going...
are they going to know you're ready for battle? They can't see that hat.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Ah,
There we go, that's better. So, the game is 2 to 4 players, and each side controls 1 or 2 factions. So you control either one or both factions, depending on how many players there are. Now, the blue cubes are representing this continental army, and the white cubes are representing the Patriot militia.
And on the British side we have the Loyalist militia, represented by these yellow cubes, and we have the British regulars, represented by the lovely red cubes.
So on each of your turns, each faction will play one of these movement cards. For example, this one says, I can move 2 of my armies 2 spaces. And as long as the army has 1 of my cubes, I can move it. So I would move these guys here, taking control of these green Native American cubes, and then I could, for example, go to war by moving these guys right here.
Hey, get out of New York.
No, we're going to battle now.
The long dark winter of 1775 was a terrible time for Mr. Potato Head and his friends.
We're talking about the mechanics of war in the board game.
Yes, of course, sorry. Okay, so when each army has finished being placed, it's time to get into battle, using these lovely dice. Now, each different faction has different statistics shown by the different sides of the dice. So we have a target to show a hit, we have a little running man to show flee, and a blank looking side for command order. So I'm going to roll 2 yellow dice to represent the 2 yellow blocks, and 1 red dice to represent the 1 red block. Let's see what I get. So in this particular instance, I have 3 command orders. So all of my troops can choose to either stay and fight or retreat to a safe area where my guys are as well. So that's the end of my turn. Next it will be my opponent's turn to see if he can try and kill me. And the battle will continue until there are no more troops in this area.
Well, if you think this game sounds simple, you're kind of right and you're kind of wrong. Every faction has a turn and that consists of a round. There's a maximum of 8, but it doesn't mean that the game will be that long. You see, there are these special movement cards in every faction's deck called Truce at the end of the 3rd round, and every round thereafter the game checks whether the Truce cards have been played by both factions on one side, and if they have, that means this is the last round.
And that's what's so great about the game, because you think you're winning, you think you own all these territories, then boom, the other player comes in and steals all your areas because he kills all your armies. And that's not all. There is also a completely random turn order, because you get this lovely bag of 4 dice in the same colours as the factions, and these are taken out one by one, and those determine the order of play.
Yeah, and there's also special warship movement. You think you're safe, you think you surrounded yourself by troops, but see, someone then plays that card, and all the troops from Nova Scotia come all the way here to York and take over. Now, you didn't expect that, didn't you? There are 3 scenarios included in the game. There's the introductory variant, just a couple of rounds long to teach you all the rules. There's 1775, the main version of the game, and there's the Invasion of Quebec, which is an advanced mode for just 2 players. Now, the game itself is gorgeous, and the box has compartments for all the armies, and including the Hessians, which are the allies for the British, and the French, which are the allies for the Americans, and they can be recruited in the game via cards. The rulebook itself is also fantastic. It has a section at the back devoted to the historical events of the 1775 rebellion, giving you context, and when you play the game after having read this, you find yourself recreating history, which feels fantastic. Now, there's another game in this series called The Birth of America, which is the 1812 invasion of Canada. It's also published by Academy Games, and is very similar to this game. The only difference being that in Invasion of Canada, you have to have 5 players. One side has 3 factions and the other has 2, and the attackers go first in combat.
Before we started playing, Efka asked me what side I would like to play as, and I said, well, I don't mind really, I guess I'll play as the British. So we were playing the game, having fun, but I found myself getting really riled up trying to claw back a victory for the British from the Americans, as if it would change actual history, which of course it wouldn't. I also, when we started playing, was a bit unsure about using the Native Americans, to just jump into the land and say, right, you're on my side now, you're fighting for me. But by the middle of the game, I was trying to recruit all of the Native Americans, forcing them to be in the British Army as well. I also noticed that I was desperately trying to cling on to areas like New York, which apparently happened in real life. So I would give you this warning: if you are playing with British players and American players, just be a little bit careful.
But what did we actually think of this game? Well, I think the design elements are very sleek and crisp. Yes, it does remind me a little bit of Risk, but unlike Risk, you don't feel like you're stuck in a losing battle for hours and hours on end. No, the game is fast and it gets you there with excitement.
I myself didn't think I would enjoy a war game, but actually this is really well thought out, really well done, and I had a huge amount of fun and really started getting into it as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always just enjoy winning over the British all over again.
Efka, shut up.
And sit down! Did I do it right? Is that...
Wrong show.
Is that the wrong show? Oh, I'm sorry.